A shift in tone from President Trump toward Russian President Vladimir Putin. But does it mean a change in action? Trump lashing out at Putin after a weekend that saw the largest Russian drone and missile strike on Ukraine since the war began. More than a dozen people killed in those strikes, with many more injured across Ukraine. The president saying on social media that Putin had gone absolutely crazy, in his words, and making these comments last night.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay?
The Kremlin's response this morning that the negotiations process has heightened everyone's emotions, leading to, quote, emotional overload from Trump. Joining us now, NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez and former CIA officer Mark Polymeropoulos, who's now an MSNBC national security and intelligence analyst. Raf, first to you, what does this mean for ceasefire negotiations?
So, Ali, as you know better than most, President Trump's efforts to get a ceasefire in Ukraine have been a real roller coaster. Some days he says a peace deal is right around the corner. Other days he is publicly frustrated with Vladimir Putin. And this is one of those days. This is some of the strongest criticism he has made yet of the Russian leader. But so far, his angry words have not been backed up with actions.
After a weekend of massive and deadly Russian strikes on Ukraine, President Trump overnight lashing out at Vladimir Putin.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
Adding in a Truth Social post, Putin has gone absolutely crazy. It's a major shift from last week when the leaders held a 2-hour phone call. Trump calling it an excellent discussion, claiming peace negotiations would begin immediately. But instead, Russia stepping up its attacks and unleashing what Ukraine says are some of the largest bombardments of the entire war, with more than 700 missiles and drones targeting dozens of cities, including Kyiv, where spotlights comb the sky for incoming attacks. At least 18 civilians were killed, including 3 children, Ukrainian officials say. President Volodymyr Zelensky calling on the U.S. to impose sanctions on Russia, saying silence of America, silence of others around the world only encourages Putin. But Trump refusing to commit to sanctions.
We'll see what we're going to do.
And hitting back at Zelensky, posting overnight, everything out of his mouth causes problems. I don't like it, and it better stop. One glimmer of hope, Russia and Ukraine completing the largest prisoner swap of the war, releasing 1,000 POWs each. We haven't had chocolate for 3 years, this Ukrainian soldier says. Wrapped in the flag they fought for, and happy to be home.
And we are hearing from the Kremlin today that Putin is grateful to President Trump for his ceasefire efforts, but also suggesting that the president may be suffering from an emotional overload. We will see how well that goes down in the Oval Office. The Kremlin is also pointing out that Ukraine is continuing drone attacks on Russia. That's true, but Russia's attacks are far larger, and they are killing many more civilians. Ali.
Raf Sanchez, thank you, as always. Now, Mark, I cannot imagine that these comments from Putin are going to land well with President Trump, who, while he has had moments of tough talk against the Russian president, has not actually changed his posture fundamentally. Do you think that this is a moment where we could see a change impact? Maybe it's sanctions. Maybe it's something else.
Well, Ali, I think it's always been the contention that the more that Vladimir Putin humiliates Trump, perhaps that's going to change some type of U.S. behavior, because ultimately now both the Trump administration and even the GOP, including some of the Russia hawks, those who do want to see increased activity against the Russians, they are now complicit in this U.S. inaction. So when is there ever a better time for things such as this sanctions package that Senator Graham has put together that would be, could be quite useful in really crippling the Russian economy? And then, of course, there's the notion of provision of additional aid to Ukraine, whether the U.S. would do that, whether it would allow our European partners to do so as well. And I will note that there is a posting that the German Chancellor Merz just put out, almost insinuating that Germany is ready to provide these Taurus missiles to Ukraine. And Merz then said there would not be any restrictions on use by Ukraine inside of Russia. So perhaps the Europeans are stepping up. But the bottom line is, at this point, after this horrible several days in Ukraine, the international community, who has been relatively impotent, powerless on this, really does have to step up. Is it going to be Trump? Who knows? Is it going to be the Europeans? Perhaps. But something has to be done.
Yeah, I think that role of the United States and the who knows posture that you're speaking to right there is one that you and I have talked about a lot on my show Way Too Early. We were talking about it this morning on Morning Joe. And certainly it lands us right here with the idea of what would Putin's strategy be if he were to lose this friendly ear from Trump, which you don't go about saying that a president has emotional overload in his responses if you're not trying to at least shake the foundation of that relationship.
Well, I think Vladimir Putin, as a former Russian intelligence officer, has a pretty good idea of what makes Trump tick. So he can kind of needle Trump here and there, but then he might follow it up with another friendly phone call. I think Putin certainly calibrates everything that he does, knowing full well that just prolonging these negotiations ultimately is going to be good for him. Never allowing Trump to feel so embarrassed, perhaps, that he would turn on the spigot again of weapons to Ukraine, because I think Vladimir Putin really understands that Trump, at most perhaps, is disinterested, but is never going to side with the Ukrainians. The Kremlin has always been very good at assessing how Donald Trump ticks, and I would imagine that to continue.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about the fact that it's long seen as Putin just trying to buy himself time to regroup while he also continues that aggressive posture that we've seen on the ground in Ukraine, especially over the last 48 and 72 hours. But before I let you go, I want to just shift our regional focus a little bit, because U.S. law enforcement officials arrested a dual American-German citizen on Sunday after an alleged plot to firebomb a U.S. embassy office in Israel. Mark, how concerned are you about these developments, and where does an investigation like that now go?
Well, I think this certainly is a sign of what has always been the case: excellent cooperation between the security services in Israel and in the United States. These kind of attacks, in essence, a lone wolf. This is an individual. A bit odd that he was, both a U.S. and German citizen, but he was going to, in essence, conduct an arson attack using Molotov cocktails at the U.S. Embassy branch office in Tel Aviv, formerly the embassy. Thank goodness it was stopped. But these, of course, are things that, one has to consider as the tensions in the region, continue to amount. And Ali, at the end of the day, we still don't have any resolution to the war in Gaza, which, of course, is the source of so much frustration. There's, some competing peace proposals out there now. Lots of things happening between what the Trump administration seems to want, that the war to end. The administration of Bibi Netanyahu is saying no. The next days ahead are going to be very telling.
Yeah, and Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is actually in Israel right now. She was saying on another network this morning that she's had some tough and honest, candid conversations with top Israeli officials. We'll see if we can get any more details on what those were, but certainly this end to the war between Israel and Gaza had to be one of the pieces discussed. Mark Polymeropoulos, as always, thank you.